All right, we're going to get started. Great to see so many people out this evening. I want to welcome you to our member forum to discuss the potential merger between Access and Crosstown Civic credit unions. My name is Kurt Letkin, and I'm the board chair for Access Credit Union. We also have Larry Davey here who can answer some questions later on as well. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get going. I want to introduce some of the other directors who are here this evening. And can I get you to stand when I announce their name, just till the end? We have Carla Unger, Bill Unruh, Jake Jansen, Alvin Elias, David Bickert, Scott Beatty, and with Jim, Jim Newfold. So these are all directors from Access from your credit union. Thank you all for coming, and they'll be available afterwards for questions if you want to have specific one-on-one discussions on anything. To begin, I want to talk a bit about how we got to this point. Our agenda for this evening includes a presentation regarding the potential merger between two credit unions, followed by a question and answer period. There was a question board, I was told when people came in, right, Berta? Okay, so we have some questions there that we'll be addressing as well. If you have any questions about any of the things related to your account, any operational items, those we ask that you talk to some of the staff after the meeting, as our focus here is going to be primarily the amalgamation discussion. In November 2019, the boards for Access and Crosstown Civic Credit Union announced that we were in discussion regarding the potential merger between our two organizations. The discussions between the two credit unions have been very positive. The steering committee for these discussions includes the two board chairs, the vice chairs, and the CEOs. Before the announcement, the two credit unions worked together to complete a concept paper with initial conclusions that clearly indicated such a partnership would provide great value for our members, employees, and communities. Since then, our teams have been working on a due diligence activities with the development of a more detailed business case. After review of the final business case, each board decided to propose the merger to our prospective members. The information we are sharing this evening is based on those discussions and the unanimous approval of the business case from both the boards of Crosstown Civic and Access. We made a conscious decision to share the news about our merger discussions early in the process, whereas it is more common to go public after a business case is finalized and amalgamation agreements have been signed. We wanted to give members, staff, and others the opportunity to help shape the discussions with their comments and feedback. We also conducted a member survey to get input regarding the potential merger. The results of the survey to date indicate that our members are interested in wanting to learn more about the potential partnership between Crosstown Civic and the benefits to members. In addition, members want to understand the reason why we are exploring a potential merger and asking the question, why merge? We are here tonight to address those questions. While Access and Crosstown Civic are both financially strong today, the boards of each credit union recognize that our role is to look to the future, 10, 15, 20 years out, and prepare the organizations for what is coming. Not unlike what the boards of Heartland, Agassiz, Dufferin, and Altona credit unions did 12 years ago, which resulted in the strong credit union being formed that is now Access. An organization much stronger than any of the original credit unions could have been on their own. Growth and change are necessary to continue to maintain value for our members in an increasingly regulated and competitive environment. Credit unions are all faced with increasing costs of technology, security, and regulatory compliance, as well as increased taxation at both federal and provincial levels. We are faced with ever-increasing expectations from our existing and future members for innovative, well-priced products and services. Members are looking for immediate service at their convenience, and that includes our 5,000 Winnipeg-based members who currently don't have a branch nearby to serve them. Our competitors continue to evolve. To meet the increasing demand, we must do the same, and we can't afford to fall behind. Increased competition is not only from the big banks and other credit unions, but more and more from online entities such as Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook, and many other virtual companies who are now trying to get into the banking game. Layered on top of all this is the need for enhanced computer security. Organizations need top-notch computer experts, and it becomes much easier to find and hire people in urban centers than in rural ones. Access Credit Union must always find a way to compete in this changing landscape. The next two slides are going to show what's happening in the Manitoba Credit Union landscape. Mergers have become the norm. Over the last 5 years, the numbers of credit unions in Manitoba has decreased from 38 to 23. In fact, there were 65 credit unions in Manitoba in the year 2000. And Credit Union Central is predicting a future of less than a handful of credit unions in the province. This trend will continue with or without access. And we want to be proactive in choosing our partners and shaping our own future as opposed to having it dictated to us. Now, mergers are not new to either Access or Crosstown Civic. Both credit unions were formed from a long history of mergers. Our history dates back and is filled with significant mergers to the 1940s. These mergers have often been successful and play a huge part in the strength that we currently enjoy. So who is Crosstown Civic, and why do we believe they are the right partner? Crosstown Civic has 9 Winnipeg locations and has a history of successful mergers. Crosstown Civic was incorporated in 2007 when Crosstown Credit Union, a closed bond Mennonite credit union, merged with Civic Credit Union, a Winnipeg-based employee credit union. Crosstown Civic has experienced many benefits as a result of these mergers, including but not limited to better rates for their members, more career opportunities for staff, greater community investment, and stronger financial overall results. They serve over 31,000 members with 160 staff and over $2.6 billion in assets, just slightly smaller than Access currently is. So early on in the process, the boards of the 2 credit unions agreed on these partnership principles to guide our discussions. That a partnership between the 2 credit unions must create tangible value and benefits for the members. Our members are why we exist. An acknowledgement that each of the credit unions has strengths, but that together we can build even better value for our members and communities. That any collaboration must leverage all the talent from each of the existing credit unions. All staff would have a role in the new organization. Any collaboration would also take a long-term view of the best interests of our members, our staff, and the credit union. And together we would design a future that is focused on the mutual gains we can generate. Our collaboration is not a negotiation, it is a creation of a new entity. And finally, our goals and objectives must be open openly shared, and we must be transparent in our conversations with each other and the membership. Everything we have done with Crosstown Civic to date has happened in accordance with these principles. And the conversations between the boards and staff have been very healthy, very cordial, and it's just been an easy group to work with. We have confirmed that Access and Crosstown Civic credit unions have similar values and goals with a focus on members, employees, and communities. We believe that our members are the reason we exist and that our goal is to make their lives better. We have similar cultures. We both believe in our staff and in collaborating and working together. Our teams are also very familiar with Crosstown Civic people as they've worked together on many projects even before these amalgamation discussions began. As shared in our partnership principles, potential merger must benefit you, the members. Both credit unions have similar goals, and we believe that together we can continue to provide highly competitive rates and fees to our members. In our due diligence, we identified that the Access high interest savings on the Platinum savings could be improved to be paid monthly instead of annually, something that Crosstown Civic currently does. The new credit union would also have the capacity for enhanced products and services to meet the current and future needs of our members, including the 9 locations that Crosstown currently serves in Winnipeg, a great advantage for our members and their families who have people they know living in Winnipeg. As I mentioned before, currently over 5,000 members from Access, so over 10% live in Winnipeg. Our buying power also improves tremendously in a larger entity, resulting in estimated savings over a few years of $360 per member. In addition, both credit unions have agreed that the new credit union would focus on maximizing the ability to pay patronage to members as part of our cooperative values and beliefs that our members should share in our profits. As a larger organization, the new Access Credit Union could also have larger lending limits, resulting in more lending decisions being made locally by the same staff that you see on a daily basis. How this would play out is the fact that the organization would kind of double in size, which would mean that the lending limits that we would have would also double, which is significant to the large commercial and ag customers that we currently have. And finally, financial strength is gained from the merger with Crosstown's current efficiency, which would allow us to keep our small rural branches open. This is something that is very important to our small communities. I had the opportunity today to spend some time in Sprague, in Vida, and Grunthal. And it is very important to our rural communities that they have a credit union that services them. And by proceeding with this amalgamation, it gives us that additional financial strength to keep that commitment to our rural locations. Consistent with who we are, Access and Crosstown Civic easily agreed that all staff would be guaranteed a position in the new organization. We strongly believe that it's our employees that differentiate us from our competition. The new credit union will be able to offer more and diverse career opportunities for staff. Some roles being more specialized with greater opportunities for development and growth. We would also be able to offer enhanced training programs along with more tools and resources that position our staff to have greater success in the future and to provide stronger service for you, the members. By combining the talent from both organizations, we will be stronger and able to do much more together. We believe that the strength of our combined credit union will allow us to continue our community investment and giving. We have greater opportunity to support communities with new financial services and resources. such as the expansion of our financial literacy program and more capacity to serve businesses through increased lending limits that I mentioned earlier. These improvements all mean stronger communities built on increased local focus and investment. Lastly, the issue of influence. I had someone ask or say to me that we're going to lose control, to which I replied, Access is currently the 21st largest credit union in Canada. A combined Access and Crosstown Civic would be in the top 10. Which credit union do you feel has more influence in the national system? Number 21 or number 8? By coming together, we're able to shape more of what the credit union landscape looks like. These are only some of the benefits we believe will result from merger with Crosstown Civic. The new credit union will be stronger financially than either credit union individually, with the ability to do more for our members, employees, and communities. As part of the merger discussions, the two credit unions agreed upon proposed future leadership, locations, and credit union name. Reflecting a true partnership, the two credit unions are recommending a board of 10 directors with 5 from each credit union. Now, this would be coded into the agreement so that each credit union would maintain that proportionate share of directorship indefinitely, so that no one entity at any point could be seen as leveraging control. The two boards agreed on the leadership of the new organization. Now, a bit of a spoiler, since the name of the new organization would be Access and the CEO Larry Davey, it was determined that the current Crosstown board chair, Ingrid Lowen, would be chair of the new credit union, and myself, Kurt Letkinen, would become vice chair. Both credit unions are fortunate to have strong leaders, and often the decision of the CEO is not determined until the business case is finalized. That said, Mona Forson, the CEO of Crosstown Civic, had previously informed her board of her intention to retire in 2020. We are pleased and fortunate to have Larry Davey, President and CEO of Access Credit Union, accept the role of President and CEO of the new organization. Larry has over 30 years of credit union experience. He's a strong leader in the system. He's held the CEO role for the last 15 years, 8 of those years with Access. Prior to that, 7 years with Moventus Credit Union in the Interlake. One of the many favorable things about the merger is the absence of geographic overlap in our combined branch network. We had 17 locations across southern Manitoba, and Crosstown Civic has 9 branches in Winnipeg. Southern Manitoba has experienced strong economic growth with many successful existing and new businesses and strong population growth. Both memberships would continue to receive the same great in-branch service they receive today, as none of the staff would change at the local branches in the short term. We will maintain our 2 current corporate offices, one in the Arden of Stanley and one in Winnipeg. In today's day and age, organizations operate from many locations, and technology allows us to do so. This would allow our staff to work remotely or various locations without needing to relocate to a corporate office. In choosing a name for the new credit union, we had 3 options. Choose one of the 2 existing names or create a new name. After discussion, both boards identified the strength of the Access name and its applicability to the missions of both Access and Crosstown Civic. It was agreed that by providing opportunities for all the members to achieve their financial goals by delivering accessible services that best meet their needs. The plan is to develop a refreshed brand with the Access name, a brand that reflects both credit unions, demonstrating the beginning of a new organization while respecting the legacies of each past. It's a name that's appealing to the greater population and one that many can associate with. Members would have access to financial products and services and to financial literacy and advice. Employees would have access to great careers with access to education, training, and development. Both boards are also pleased to share that the new credit union would use Accelerate Financial as the name of its virtual deposit product. Accelerate Financial is currently a division of Crosstown Civic. The new entity would have the capacity to make further investment in benefits of our current and future Accelerate Financial members. The brand for Accelerate Financial would also be refurbished. Now this slide illustrates the process, timelines, and hopeful next steps. The boards have unanimously approved the business case that was developed and have recommended the proposed merger be put to a vote for Thursday, March 19th. If approved by both memberships, the merger would take effect on July 1st, 2020. In the meantime, we will continue on our journey, engaging our members throughout the process. We will continue to communicate using the various mechanisms described here. And we will continue to seek your feedback and questions through one-on-one discussions, our dedicated email address, our merger website, and special membership meeting held on March 19th. We acknowledge that change can bring uncertainty and that you will have questions. So thank you for listening to me. It is now your turn. We're going to open the floor up for any questions that you may have. We've got a mic over here. Again, just a reminder that we want to focus on amalgamation questions, not operational questions. So, Bill, would you be okay to be the mic runner? Okay. If you have a question, just raise your hand and we will get the mic brought over to you. One over there, Bill. Watch out, this is on.
An obvious question, why wouldn't you merge with Rosenort? They're on your doorstep.
Why wouldn't you merge with Rosenort is the question. So the reality is when we look at a market, we're doing very well in this southern Manitoba market. We are limited somewhat by where we can go. We can't go south, we can't expand to the south. Both east and west are a little more sparsely populated. The primary area of growth for us is obviously Winnipeg. That's the area where there's the most potential. And especially with the fact that we've got 5,000 members currently living in Winnipeg. I had a situation a couple months ago. My son recently graduated high school. He spent a year at Red River and he's now working as a mechanic in Winnipeg. And he calls me one day and says, "Dad, I want to get a car loan." I said, "Oh, that's fine. Just call the access people." He said, "Well, no, there's no access in Winnipeg. I want to go to a credit union in Winnipeg." And then you had a bit of a discussion as to loyalty and not a chance that you're ever going to do that. But he just commented on how it would be so much easier if we had a presence in Winnipeg for people like students who've gone to school or for families that have relocated. So, for us, the reason we're looking at Winnipeg is that's the natural market.
Yes, well, that was the same issue 5 years ago where you wanted to do your last amalgamation. And then at that time, at least you had a branch at Oak Bluff. Now we hear Oak Bluff was closed. Like, why? Did you already do that to prepare for this amalgamation? Like, it was there. That would have been within reach from anywhere in Winnipeg.
So the Oak Bluff branch was the one branch that we did not own the property. That property was owned by someone else, so it was a matter of when the building got sold, having to renew a lease. And that building itself, having been a former garage, I believe, came with some potential issues long-term. So we didn't close Oak Bluff with this in mind. We relocated temporarily because we knew that that was not an ideal facility. We have talked about other ways of servicing that area. We know that even if this amalgamation does go through, Crosstown Civic does not have a branch in southwest portion of Winnipeg, an area that anybody that's driven in that around the perimeter in the last number of years is probably, I'm always shocked at the fact that houses are now all the way to the perimeter when you used to be able to see a couple of miles. So that's an area that is really expanding. So I can see that there's opportunity to do something in that area as well. Any other questions? Going back, okay. Will the excess credit union accept the vote that comes up this time? Like last time when I was pretty close. And apparently there were some mistakes and you redid it. Will you accept the vote that's going on? Yeah, so the benefit this time around, is we feel we are going to be able to get an accurate reflection of the vote. The challenge the first time around was you had to vote at a meeting. And for a lot of our members, it's challenging to drive. So I was in Sprague today, so that's about a 2.25 hour drive from Winkler. So people like that, I don't want to drive that far just to cast a ballot. We are fortunate this time around in that people will be able to vote online, they'll be able to vote in any of our branches, they'll be able to vote with their mobile devices. So we feel we're going to be able to get a really good reflection on our membership. The first vote last time around, I don't think you're going to remember this, but that also happened to be the night of the first ever Winnipeg Jets playoff game. So lots of people said, well, I would have been interested in voting, but I just assumed everything was going to be good and I didn't want to miss the hockey game. So this year, if by some miracle the Jets can make the playoffs, people will still be able to vote from their couch and not have to drive anywhere. So yes, there's one vote this time and that will be it.
You mentioned earlier that you're going to have 5 people from each board.
Yep.
So when you're making a discussion and there's a tie vote all of a sudden, who breaks the tie?
It is a good question. The feeling is that when a board works together, and I will share this from an access standpoint, we've had a 10-member board at Access, and we have not come close to having any kind of vote or any kind of issue where there's a tie. The feeling amongst the board is you try to work for consensus. And if there's a tie, it would likely, whatever the issue was that we were talking, it wouldn't pass. Because you have to be able, in order for something to work, you have to have people buy into it and believe in it. And I would likely think that even if you ever got to a point where it was 6-4, you probably wouldn't proceed with something. Because you want to make sure that you're proceeding for the right reason. And I can honestly say that I think that around our access table, we have probably been very close to consensus on every issue that we've talked, or reaching consensus at some point on most issues we talk about. Because if people are opposed to it, we want to explore why, and we're not going to ram anything down anybody's throat. Other question? No?
Yes, last time, 5 years ago, what what you were saying was you want to balance commercial with housing because the government, the rules were coming out. Housing was guaranteed by CMHC or whatever it's called.
Yep.
And so you want to balance it more. Well, what I hear now, Crosstown is mostly commercial, and it's so it's not balancing out with what the two mergers right now. They're contradicting themselves. Like, and I know from the meetings we have been since that you personally, Kurt and Mary Davy, the first thing that comes across your tongue is merger. Mr. Davy, I would like to ask you personally, what is in it for you? What kind of labor or kickback are you going to be getting through this? Also for you, Mr. Leftyman, what is the push to merge? This community has been built up like the Mennonites years ago started, build up slowly, build it up yourself, not always merge. This kind of doing your competition in town here is building up. They have no urge to merge and are paying a better interest rate than you. Well, what possesses you to want to merge all of that?
Sure, I'll gladly respond to that. And I will speak on the comment about Larry. So first off, the amalgamations have nothing to do with staff driving any of this. An amalgamation is 100% the board's responsibility. So it's the board that shapes these discussions, and the boards will task managers to do various things. But amalgamation discussions are not driven by staff. They are not driven by the CEO. They are driven by the board. So what prompts us to want to continue talks about amalgamation? It's looking into the future. And when Credit Union Central of Manitoba tells us there's likely going to be a handful, if that, number of credit unions in the province, and their information has been pretty accurate over the last 20 years. They've predicted pretty much everything that has happened. And we want to be able to shape that future for our members. Because honestly, credit union membership in a large percentage is aging. And unless we are proactive in building a strong organization that our young people can attach themselves to, credit unions may not exist in 20 years when the demographics shift. So we have to be able to do things that are going to be attractive to our young growing members. Now, people talk about getting bigger, and if we were to take all the credit unions in Canada across, from Victoria to St. John, Newfoundland, and put them all together, they would still be smaller than any one of the big 5 banks. 3 years ago, the top 10 credit unions in Canada each put in $1 million to try and partner to shape or to do some research on technology and what the future would look like in technology. That's $10 million from the top 10 credit unions in Canada. That same year, Scotiabank alone spent $100 million researching technology. So the reality is our competitors are massive. And we can't worry about this, the regional ones here, because our competitors are coming from all over the world now. And it's just it's the reality of the financial industry landscape, and that it is just changing. Nobody would have predicted that 10 years ago, or should I say, when we were talking with Assiniboine, we weren't talking about the fact that people are going to be able to email payments to each other without using a banking app. There's an app now called Venmo, and Adam's, or Marlon's probably much more familiar with this kind of stuff than I am, but people can actually now just send money to somebody else without actually having to do an e-transfer or anything like that. So our competition is coming from all kinds of sources which we never expected. You know, and you had a good question there about balancing, because yeah, the last time around, one of the attractive things about Civic was their commercial or their residential mortgage aspect of things, and they have a lot of residential mortgages. You know, this time around, we haven't looked so much at what the portfolio is of Crosstown Civic, as we've tried to look at, we want to do something in Winnipeg, because if we're going to grow, that's the place that we have to do. We are very successful in Winkler, we're very successful in Alton, we're very successful in a lot of our communities. So there's not a lot of room for us to grow exponentially. But Winnipeg is the area. And as I said, when 10% of our members live there, that's pretty significant. And the fact that Crosstown Civic is more commercial, actually isn't, we haven't spent a lot of time talking on that. But they've got commercials, which really means there's untapped potential for residential mortgage gains in Winnipeg. And that's something that, you know, as a board, we've talked about thinking, wow, there's some pretty good potential if we can make this work to grow that business by getting into some residential stuff in Winnipeg. So yeah, it's a different focus than last time. It's much more intended to look for a good partner and then shape what the business looks like after that. And when it comes to partners in Winnipeg, you know, this Crosstown Civic is the most aligned with the area that we have here of any of the credit unions within the province. So, you know, I want to, again, I speak to the fact that this is not anything driven by Larry or any of the management team. This is driven by the board, because the board are the ones that see the future is changing. Hang on just a second, coming with the mic.
Yes, I sort of totally disagree with what you're saying, because when you look on the websites, that Steinbeck has they started organically. In other words, they got no mergers. Other credit unions they have on there about their, serving their members and what for the members and stuff like that. Apparently, with Larry on the Access website, it's all about mergers. Like he's possessed with mergers.
Well, again, I'm not going to address that too much because the merger is not Larry's discussion. It's the board's discussion. And when you talk Steinbeck, I will say that over half their business comes from Winnipeg. So,
Yeah,
you know,
they built up there. They built two credit unions. You could start too. You could, I suggested that years ago, but it doesn't always have to be the best. You could put up a house trader there and start there and then build yourself up. I have nothing against, like doing it on your own, but don't always merge with others.
well, we'll have this discussion after between some coffee. So, yeah, everybody has their opinions on the best way of doing things. The feeling amongst the board is this is a way to gain some scale with a similar sized partner who also brings some benefits to the table. Go ahead.
How many members does Access Credit Union have?
52,000? Yes.
How many of those members are from Winkler, like Winkler Credit Union members?
Oh, Verna,
About 15,000.
15,000?
15,000. At one time, Winkler Credit Union members had a say in what happened in Winkler Credit Union. We don't have that say anymore, and it's going to go more and more away. The more we merge into different areas, the more partners there is, the less say we have.
Well, I will say that we as members, and I include myself in this, we all have one share. And the only say that we as a member have is when we come to vote at an AGM or a special meeting.
So that's right. That it really doesn't have to do with doing what the members want. I think it's more of a board-owned credit union already. Members already told us 5 years ago or whenever that was that we didn't really want a merger. Why did that merger not work?
You know, I'm not going to get into the specifics of why the previous merger, we can talk about that later. The the reality here is that the board, each director has the same amount of shares as every member. And as a board, our responsibility is to do what's best for what we feel is best for the organization. Now, there is nothing in this for the directors. In fact, half the directors are going to not be directors if this proceeds. Myself, I will be a board chair if this proceeds. So each one of the directors believes in the long-term success of this organization, and we're doing what we feel is best for the organization. This is not what's best for us, because there's nothing in this for us.
So when members say a few years ago they didn't want to amalgamate, that still, you're still saying that doesn't matter what you want, you think this is best for you. You people don't really know what you need to decide on. We'll decide that this merger has to be best for you guys.
Well, and I think that's, you know, as I said earlier, the previous amalgamation had some different aspects to it than this one does. It's a different partner. It's got a bit of a different focus. And lots of people that I talked to previously that voted against it, they weren't necessarily voting against the business case. They were voting against a certain aspect of it. But most people understand that the landscape is changing and our world is changing. And that status quo is not an option long-term to survive.
So you're saying all the credit unions in Canada, none of them can really compete with a big bank.
I will say that I would put good money on it that I bet 90% of the credit unions in Canada right now are talking about amalgamation.
Okay, so if they all amalgamated into one credit union, could they compete against one of the big banks?
Well,
Realistically, could, like you were just saying that the big
Yeah,
banks are
so-
way bigger.
so could they compete? Definitely. The challenge though is, could you get all the credit unions in Canada to agree? The likelihood of getting all the credit unions in Manitoba to agree is challenging. So, you know, if we put every credit union in Manitoba in the same room and said, we gotta come up with one credit union, everybody would say, yeah, that's a great idea, as long as we do everything my way. So, you know, that's the challenge.
I would say that's like throwing good money after bad money. I think we should maybe consider moving to the Scotia Bank or the Royal Bank or something like that. Like, why even bother with a credit union? We can't compete. We can't have a localized rural credit union anymore because it just won't work. We might as well move them.
So I'm not saying it can't be. I said there's a significant difference though between a credit union and a bank. And a credit union cares about its community.
Oh, yeah, right.
And a credit union invests in the staff that live in the community. We encourage our staff to volunteer in various organizations. We contribute to a lot of causes that go on across the organization, across our communities. The organization I worked for in Altona a few years ago, and this is pre-Access. This is put back in Altona credit union days. There was a project that happened, I believe it was in 2000, and somebody made a big splash of the fact that the CIBC had donated $25,000 to this project. And we're just ranting and raving, wow, you know, CIBC did a great job, put $25,000 in next. You remember that the Altona credit union put $125,000 into that project? And that's what we as credit union, we believe in our communities. So we'll do one more question and then we'll move on. We can have this conversation further. Go ahead, go ahead.
You said before that there was no approach made by Access Credit Union in regards to the merger and no approach from the other credit union to merger. So who talked to who? Who approached who first?
I don't don't think I said there was no approach. So,
You said it was not staff, and it was not your CEO.
no, it's
so
the
somebody,
board. It's the
who,
board.
my question still remains, who approached who?
What happens often in these situations is that there's sort of annual director seminars. And there's conversations that occur amongst directors who say, hey, we should consider this. And, there was, a bunch of our directors were at a session in Brandon in, when was it? November? And there were probably 25 directors there from 10 different credit unions, I think, or thereabouts. And at one point, one of the directors just said, you know what, we should just all merge and amalgamate together.
So from which side? Who initiated the amalgamation?
We probably, we had a conversation with Crosstown Civic.
Okay. One more question I have is, you've talked an awful lot about the positives, the advertising's been all in regards to the positives of the merger. And yet we've heard from our local credit union, was supposed to be being in our best interest. We've heard no negatives. And yet how can I make a good business decision without knowing both sides of the story?
We honestly don't feel there are a lot of negatives to this.
And we've heard none.
We don't believe there are any. Because the reality is, when something like this happens, you're going to take two organizations and you merge them together. You take the best from each organization. So if the one example was on the savings account. So Crosstown Civic pays their interest monthly, whereas we pay ours annually. So the thought was, we'll take that and we'll merge the best part here, we'll do the best part on the interest rate. When it comes to looking at products and services, you take which is the best product for your members. So you never want to go backwards in any of these things. And I haven't gone through every aspect of what the organization is going to look like. But from a high level, we're not looking for any negatives in this proposed amalgamation.
Well, I've been a member of this credit union now, I looked it up the other day, for approximately 40 plus years. And may I be the first person to tell you one negative that there is, and that is, I remember walking up to the wicket in our local credit union, and they call you by name, and especially if you had some little lady or gentleman standing in front of you, they call you by name as they walk up to the wicket and were punching in their account number because they knew. That, because we're getting larger, we lose. So that's one thing we do lose. Our personal touch in our local community is being lost.
So I will speak to that a little bit, in that nothing changes in our branch level. So if there's a feeling that personal connection is different, yeah, it is different than it once was. It's different in Altona. As somebody said to me, well, I used to be able to go into the branch manager's office. I said, yeah, you know what? That was 20 years ago, and that branch manager was 60 years old. So he was going to be gone regardless. And our staff, our frontline staff, they're not going to change. The only changes are natural. So there always is transition. I think Chris could probably speak to this from a Winkler standpoint, is when you've got staffing issues, when you're dealing with a lot of staff, there's going to be some staff turnover. So that has nothing to do with the fact that the organization has gotten bigger. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that the community of Winkler has gotten bigger. My parents are both from Winkler. And as a kid, I spent a lot of my summers in Winkler on Mountain Avenue, just across the street from the old Heppner store. And we would bike around Winkler, and we could cover pretty much the whole city. A couple of years ago, we went looking for my grandparents' place, my other grandparents' place, which used to be 3 houses from the edge of the city, which was a farm, was in a field. And it's amazing that the city now probably goes another 4 or 5 blocks further than it once did. So it's a factor that the city has gotten bigger, which is a good thing in a lot of ways. But when there's that many more people to know, it's hard to know everybody.
You talked about community support, and last time around, there was some difference in our values or the
Right.
areas that we want. Can you tell me a little bit more about Crosstown Civic's community support areas and that has been investigated and how that works?
Yeah, so there's a lot of similar Mennonite heritage between the two organizations. So their donation philosophy would align a lot with art. The one difference is what we've done with our donation policy is we've tried to focus on specific projects or building or more tangible things. We don't focus our donations on operational items. So if Carmen is building a playground for kids, we'll focus on a playground, we'll focus on building something as opposed to an operational item. The challenge in Winnipeg, and this isn't just Crosstown, this is everybody, when you're a Winnipeg credit union, what is your community? Because it's such a big area. So we can define a drop-in center in Grunthal that says, oh yeah, well, this is easy to define what our community looks like. Theirs is a little different in that they do more for, they will support some Mennonite schools, is what they've done. They will support some of the mission stuff, mission opportunities in Winnipeg. That's historically where they have spent more of their time, more on operational items versus building, because if you're trying to build something in Winnipeg, like where do you start? It's such a huge area. But yes, we have definitely looked at the donation areas, and there's pretty good alignment within the sort of the belief structure of the two organizations. It was somewhat interesting that, so 4 of their directors, just in our conversation, I found which church they go to, and a kid who was in our youth group when I was a youth sponsor is now their pastor. So it's interesting how the relationships kind of connect when you start playing that, we'll call it the Mennonite game, but just there's a pretty significant connection between their membership and our membership.
In your opening, when you started here, you talked about Crosstown and their previous mergers. Just was wondering if you could repeat their previous mergers.
Yeah, so Crosstown used to be the Mennonite, well, I don't think they were ever called the Mennonite credit team, but Crosstown was the North Kildonan Mennonites. They amalgamated with Civic, which was, so in a lot of cases, credit unions used to be specific for specific businesses. So, and in the US, it's still very much the case. So there was the Safeway in Winnipeg had its own credit union, and the city of Winnipeg had its own credit union. What's happened is it just doesn't become wouldn't be viable for a triple-E credit union in the city of Winkler. It's just, so these smaller credit unions decided at some point, sorry, I didn't mean anything by that, but it was just triple-E credit union probably wouldn't make it work. So the reality is there was Safeway Credit Union, which amalgamated with Civic, which was the city of Winnipeg, and they just then amalgamated with Crosstown Civic. It's been determined on, they say that it's, so you got Civic and Crosstown. They're telling us that Crosstown is sort of the larger of the entity, the more engaged membership. They're the ones who are sort of more active in it. So.
And they're mostly located in the Kildonan area.
Well, I would say a lot of the people that are their members live in North Kildonan. They have branches. They have couple in North Kildoran, they have one right downtown on Donald by the MTS Center. They have one on Pembina Highway, kind of across from the Boston Pizza. They have one on Portage Avenue on, not all the way west, but they have one on Portage Avenue. I'm not sure where the other ones all are. There's one on St. Anne's Road and Phillips, so they are somewhat spread out. But there's a lot of potential on the southwest part of it. Okay, we'll take a couple more and then we'll wrap things up. But I said that as directors, we will be around for questions afterwards. Go ahead.
So you mentioned that there would be technology improvements with the merger. Can you just go through some of the examples of what you're expecting that to look like in the future?
Yeah, you know, technology is always a really challenging one to predict because, you know, you don't know what's, well, we do have a technology expert here. We've got a couple. Arlen, what are we going to see?
Well, we're currently working on we're not gonna say this. So we're currently working on, we just recently kicked off a new digital banking platform. So that will include both a new mobile app and a new online presence. And so those things cost a fair chunk of change. And so spreading that across two organizations is certainly a benefit to all of our access members for sure.
You know, some of the things that happen with technology is you can't necessarily predict what your technology is going to be, but when you are larger, you're able to react to that new technology quicker. The one thing that I'll mention is this is one that impacted me. I remember 4 years ago, I was in the States on vacation and I saw a commercial for this couple who had just gotten married and they were going through all the checks they had got for their wedding and they were taking pictures of them and depositing them. And that was sort of, it was Chase, no, it wasn't Chase, it was Capital One was the one bank that came up with that first. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. You can take a picture of a check and you can deposit it. So I remember calling our staff and they said, yeah, this is something that's coming. Now, fast forward a couple of years, the fact that access was larger meant that we were able to roll that feature out a year and a half before a lot of the smaller credit unions in the province. So we can't necessarily predict exactly what the technology is going to be, but we do position ourselves to better implement them quicker when we become a larger, stronger organization. Any question, Adam?
I do.
So email you a question?
Somebody did.
Okay, look at that. See, there's technology, right? So email me a question.
So we have about 25 people that have dialed in remotely to watch this. And they've been given the opportunity to ask questions at the same time. Only one question so
I
far.
apologize for having to look at me, by the way. So.
That wasn't the question. How will this merger affect our small town branches?
So that's a very good question. Our commitment to communities is strengthened by a successful amalgamation because of the fact that it allows us to become a stronger organization and it allows us to keep our smaller branches open. Now, the reality is, I talked before about some of the pressures in the credit union system. So, you know, while our growth, our asset growth is like this, our profitability is like this. And that's because of the challenges that I talked about in regulatory environments becoming more and more expensive to operate. Cybersecurity, to be able to protect your assets, or our assets, is very expensive. And everybody wants it because you don't want to wake up one morning and find out that our account is at zero. Just a lot of things. Taxation. So Cameron Friesen isn't here, so I can rail a bit on the PCs, but you know, the government, and I don't want to hit this, definitely, but they changed the rules a couple years ago. and the federal government as well, so that credit unions are now taxable, just like banks are. So from an access standpoint, it probably takes $3 to $5 million a year off our bottom line over time. And you know, it's the reality, and I understand why the government did it, but it does impact us as an organization, and it puts more and more pressure on. So how does it impact our small communities? A successful amalgamation gives us the strength to be able to maintain a presence in our small communities longer.
Thank you.
Anything else? We're going to do one more question, and then we're going to wrap things up. And I will say that we as directors will be around to engage in any conversations you want to have after that.
Back to the Rosenart Credit Union, all of the positives for merging, how come they don't know about it, the board of directors? Or are they going to come to us in 5 years and say, could we merge with us or somebody else? Because how can they operate in this climate that you're talking about, we have to merge, how come they don't know that?
How come they don't know that?
Yeah.
I want to be careful what I say, but I think they probably do. I will, when I said before that I would guess that 95% of credit unions in Canada are talking about amalgamation, that probably, I'll let you figure it out. 95% is pretty high, and I think it's on everybody's radar. So I don't want to speak for them, and I'm not going to say anything negative about them, but I will say that every credit union has to be thinking about this in the long term. So, yeah, if I run into any of their directors, I can ask them, but I have been very intentional not to push them on it, because I do know some of their directors. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. Great questions. So we were in Carmen yesterday, and there were only a handful of questions. This is a good, engaging process. Again, I want to invite you all to stick around for some snacks. The directors will be around to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for coming, and wish you all